The following program may contain coarse language, violence, nudity, mature subject matter, or scenes which may not be suitable for all viewers. Viewer discretion is advised.
This is the X-Zone Broadcast Network, broadcasting worldwide on broadcast affiliates and satellite program providers, including CNN Broadcast Network, Sirius Satellite Network, Star Media, Good News Radio Network, Angel Broadcast Network, Wiki Broadcast Network, and WPBN TV. For more information on the X-Zone Broadcast Network, visit us at www.xzbn.net.
All Hit Radio.
Welcome to the X-Zone, a place where fact is fiction and fiction is reality. Now, here's your host, Rob McConnell.
Welcome back, everyone. This is the X-Zone. I am Rob McConnell. We're coming to you from our broadcast center in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada. If you'd like to send an email, xzone at xzoneradiotv.com, on all social media sites, X-Zone Radio TV, and our main website, www.xzoneradiotv.com. We have two guests tonight. On this hour, we have Nicki Scully and Normandi Ellis, who are going to be joining us this hour. And we're going to be talking about shamanic journeys. And first of all, Nicki and Normandi, welcome to the X-Zone.
Thank you. It's a pleasure.
Good to be here.
All right, Nicki, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Well, I've been, I guess I've been studying shamanism since the 60s when I first got turned on to LSD, and that sort of threw me into a completely different reality than the Beverly Hills world I was brought up in, and changed my life radically. I dropped out, went up to San Francisco, fell in love with the manager of the Grateful Dead, and spent quite a number of years in that, probably 14 years before I realized that in order to learn what I needed to learn to do the healing that needed to be done in that scene, I had to leave and go find teachers. But in the meanwhile, they took me to Egypt in 1978, and that was the pivotal moment when I realized, one, that was my homecoming party. You know, I was returning, and two, that I was to become a healer, and I didn't know what that meant, and that search turned out to, well, my whole life.
When you say they took you to Egypt, who took you to Egypt?
The Grateful Dead.
I see. Was there a connection between you and Egypt? Do you think that you were in Egypt in a previous life?
Absolutely. I don't. And what's interesting is that I've never really taken the time, because it hasn't been relevant to ask about that and what I did, but from the work that Normandi and I are doing, it's clear that we were both teachers in Egypt together thousands of years ago, because we have that sisterhood. We can, in writing together, we can cross each other's T's and dot our I's and finish each other's sentences, and it's been quite glorious.
Wow. How did you two meet?
Do you want to?
Okay.
I heard the chuckle there, so I can hardly wait.
Well, I had been translating hieroglyphs for a while and had published my first book, Awakening Osiris, and I think maybe even Dreams of Isis had come out by that time. And I knew who Nicki was, but I hadn't really met her yet. And so she decided to just cold call me. And I was living in Kentucky at the time, a single mom, had an 8-year-old daughter. And so my daughter gets this phone call, and there's someone on the phone asking for Normandi Ellis. And my daughter hollers out, "Mom, it's one of them." But it was really funny, and it was actually like a really kind of sweet little, the minute we started talking, it was as if we'd known each other for years.
And then we started teaching together. I guess I managed to drag her to Egypt. And we taught in Egypt before we started the mysteries. And then we did 17 years of yearly retreats here at my home center in Eugene, Oregon, of the Egyptian mysteries, and 5 trips to Egypt. Wow. I've probably led more than 60 trips to Egypt since I first went in the 70s with the Grateful Dead.
Ladies, you and I have to take a commercial break. We'll be back in 2 minutes. So from one of those to 2 of those, we'll be back on the other side of the commercial break with our very special guests this hour, Nicki Scully and Normandi Ellis. This is the X Zone. My name is Rob McConnell. We'll be back. Don't go away. Modern Esoteric, Beyond Our Senses by Brad Olson, consummates the lifology story about where humanity originates. It is the lost continents, the primitive wisdom, the mythos of creation, and the rethinking of ancient history as we are taught in academia. There is much more to the story than what we have been told. As this is the first book in the Esoteric series, Modern Esoteric starts at the beginning of time and accelerates up to this modern age. Future Esoteric is book 2 in the series and takes a forward-looking position ahead of today with an open and honest examination of the ET issue and various unexplained phenomena. To discover the writings of author Brad Olson, visit www.bradolson.com. That's www.bradolson.com. Named one of the world's greatest psychics, Elizabeth Joyce is now giving readings worldwide via Skype. Elizabeth Joyce is recognized for her clairvoyant ability to help find missing persons, her analysis of dreams, past life regression work, mediumship, and her accurate predictions. Elizabeth has been a frequent guest on the X Zone radio show with yours truly, Rob McConnell, now for several years. For an appointment with Elizabeth Joyce, call 201-934-8986 or Skype at elizabeth.joyce. And for more information, you can always visit Elizabeth Joyce online at www.new-visions.com. Exonation, Nicki Scully and Normandi Ellis are our guests. For Nicki, her website is www.shamanicjourneys.com, and Normandy's website is www.normandyellis.com. So what do you do when you go to Egypt? There is that laughing again.
Well, it's so we're pantheists. We have spent decades making relationships with the deities to which the temples and monuments were dedicated. And since Normandi can read the hieroglyphs, she understands that a lot of the instructions on the walls of certain Old Kingdom pyramids, like the Pyramid of Unas, and other writings are instructions not for the dead, as the traditional archaeology would say, but for the living, in order to receive the initiations they required in order to have direct connection from source and consequently be able to have enlightened rulership. Of course, it's obviously that was corrupted over time, but there were a number.
That was the plan.
That was the plan, and that was done quite well when it was done. And so what we're doing is looking for those relevant truths that they put so much effort and intention and magic into putting into those temples, and then guiding our participants so they have direct experiences.
What kind of
gain that knowledge?
What kind of experiences?
Well, for example, because these are the mysteries, we're usually told very little ahead of time. And then just before we go to a temple or monument, we get the download of the instructions. And about halfway through the trip, we begin to understand the process of alchemy that we're engaged in. And by the end of the trip, we have, as a collective circle, created the Philosopher's Stone or the alchemical gold, or that essential truth and enlightened experience that we were striving for.
Where do you get this information from? The instructions from that you were talking about?
Well, mostly they come from looking at the hieroglyphs and trying to understand them in ways that are not commonly understood, but to sort of work with a more spiritual understanding. You know, everything's encoded in those glyphs. You know, their symbols, their sounds, their mythological stories, and if you try to interpret them with just a one-word interpretation, you end up with sort of gobbledygook. And so you have to look at them in multiple ways through multiple lenses in order to really understand what they're doing. And, you know, when I did the Book of the Dead, it took me 10 years to translate those hieroglyphs because I kept going through the text 3-4 times trying to make sure I got it right. And at this point, I know most of the text fairly well enough. I know the etymology of a lot of the words. A lot of the symbols are, you know, they just appear in my dreams now.
But that's the scholar speaking. She's also a priestess and a medium, and our teacher is Thoth. Have you ever heard of Thoth?
No, ma'am.
He's also known as Hermes Trismegistus, the thrice great born. He is the mediator of the gods, of that pantheon, and the oldest, and the one that, as they grow and evolve, just like we are growing and evolving, he's the one that they go to find the wisest solution. So it's like turning on your FM radio and looking for that band or frequency